If you're looking for one of the nicer headlight upgrades available for your 2015 through 17 F-150, then you might want to consider the Morimoto XB projectors that we have here, complete with white daytime running lights. Now these DOT approved lights will pack a whopping 2,600 lumens thanks to the included LED projectors, along with the diffused white LEDs, all for the mid to high $1,300 price point. Installation is going to get a pretty solid 2 out of 3 wrenches on the difficulty meter according to the site, and that's mainly due to the fact that the removal process of the lights themselves is a little bit tough. But if you hang with me for a bit, we'll walk you through that job a little later in the video. All right, gang, so you are currently looking at the Rolls-Royce of aftermarket headlight upgrades for your truck, and the price is certainly going to reflect that. But what do you say we talk a little bit more about what you are getting for the money here? And on the surface, you're getting one of the highest quality aftermarket options currently at AmericanTrucks.com. Now this does include the PPS plastic housing with built-in aluminum heat sinks, all topped off with that impact-proof polycarbonate lens, and that's also going to feature a baked-in UV coating to help prevent any fading or hazing on you over the years. Now altogether, the housings and the lenses are sealed up well enough to achieve a waterproof rating of IP67, which is pretty much the standard in the industry for auxiliary or aftermarket lighting, headlights, light bars, and so on. But inside that housing or those lenses is where all the magic happens, right? So let's start breaking things down, starting with the quad Curia optic projectors, which are going to allow for equal parts illumination and very unique appearance. Now the top two here on either side are going to function as your low beams, while the bottom two are going to serve as your highs. Now the performance is going to be night and day compared to the weak factory halogens, thanks to the Osram Ostar white LEDs. Again, pumping out over 2,600 lumens at that 5,500K color temperature. Now Morimoto even claims that these bad boys are going to outperform the factory F-150 LED headlights, which is very impressive. But that standard lighting is really only a fraction of the total package here, guys, because you are also getting the diffused LED running lights going around the perimeter of the headlights themselves. And those are done in a very factory-like manner thanks to that diffused LED, much like the LED F-150s, Raptors, and so on. Now this particular set does feature the white LED running lights, but Morimoto also offers the amber style with the running lights as well. Those are going to be a little bit more OE in style. The whites that we have here, I feel, are going to give off a little bit more of that aftermarket style or appearance. But again, you can find both options right here at American Trucks. Now, if those daytime running lights weren't enough, Morimoto also built in a turn signal to the top portion of the DRLs here that will function either as a solid blink or a sequential pattern. And that looks completely awesome and just really separates these from some of your other more affordable options in the category. Now the site is gonna say that these are specifically for halogen equipped F-150s, and while that is true, Morimoto states you can also use these on factory LED equipped trucks. Maybe you busted them up in an accident, you don't want to spend the $2,000 to replace them with the OE Ford lights. You can use these on that LED equipped truck. However, you will just need to buy a separate harness to make everything plug and play, but Morimoto states that it is possible. Last but not least, guys, these things are backed by a limited 5-year warranty in case you happen to run into any issues. Now, if you do have a halogen-equipped truck, these are going to be completely plug-and-play, guys, as we're about to show you with our detailed walkthrough. So without further ado, here's how to install them along with a quick tool breakdown. Check it out.
So the tools used for this install are a 1/4-inch ratchet, 7mm socket, 8mm socket, 10mm socket, a T25 Torx bit, a small extension, and a clip removal tool. So the first step of this install is going to be to pop the hood and to remove the trim bezel that goes around the headlight. There's just a clip and a couple of screws that hold those in and they pop right out. So let's get started. So I'm just going to use a small clip tool to remove the push clip at the top of the bezel. And that should pop right out. Next I'm going to use a 7mm socket to remove the 2 screws on the inside of the wheel liner. And this bezel should come right off. Now we're going to remove this lower plastic piece underneath the headlight that exposes the bolts that hold the headlight in. I'm going to use a 10mm bolt for the majority of these, but you'll need an 8mm for one of them. And this last bolt here in the front corner is actually an 8mm, so I'm gonna use an 8mm socket and pop that out. And last but not least, I'm gonna use my trim tool again to remove one of the push clips that holds the lower plastic piece in, and then this lower plastic piece should come right out. All right, so there's 3 final bolts that hold the headlight into place. There's one hidden back here in between the headlight and the grille. I'm just gonna use a short extension and a 10mm socket and remove that. And these last 2 bolts up here at the top of the headlight. Now I can pull my headlight out and disconnect all of the electrical connections on the back. So there's one mounting bracket that needs to be transferred from your original headlight to your new headlight, and you're just gonna use a T25 Torx bit and remove these 3 screws on the bracket and transfer it all over to the new assembly. Now we're ready to throw that into the truck. So before you can actually install these headlights into the vehicle, there's an initial step that needs to be done involving tapping into one of the circuits in the fuse box. So what you actually have to do is tap into the fuse box panel, open it up, and locate fuse number 113, which for those of you wondering, this 7.5 amp fuse here in the back of this little panel here. Just pop that out, and then they provide you with a fuse tap harness that you'll add into that location. So this is the fuse tap that they give you for the kit, and you'll just go ahead, it already has the 2 fuses installed in it. You just go ahead and plug that into the location where you remove the 1 fuse, and then you'll tuck the wire the way you need it and route it so that it doesn't interfere with the box at all, and put your cover back on and route the harness to your passenger and driver side headlights so that you can make connections later on. So I'm just gonna bunch up some of the slack and tuck it in behind the battery. The longer of the 2 pieces goes over to the driver's side, and the shorter goes over to the passenger side headlight. And I'm just gonna route mine down and around the washer bottle so that it comes into the back of the headlight opening. So on the back of this headlight, there are several wire harnesses and connectors. If you are working with a halogen vehicle, which we are in this case, this connector right here is not going to be used. This small connector right here is for the wire harness that we just ran from the fuse box. And this small connector right here, the 2-pin, is going to be used for the turn signal bulb itself. So all the other connections, as you can see down here, will be the same for the connections on the harness for the vehicle. So we'll just go ahead and make these connections, plug everything in, and bolt the headlight in as if it was stock. And then the last 2. Just make sure you match up the shapes on your connectors. Plug them in until they click. I'm just gonna make sure that I tuck the rest of these connectors and this harness into the larger void next to the windshield washer bottle here on the passenger side so that nothing interferes when I put the headlight into place, and slide everything in, line up my bolt holes. So I'll just start by installing the top 2 bolts to make sure I have everything in place properly. Using my 10mm socket once again. And I'll snug those down. Careful not to strip the plastic threads. Now we're ready to throw this lower plastic piece up underneath the headlight in using the factory hardware. Now we can throw on the headlight bezel. Now we're ready to repeat this process on the other side. Now, just like I did on the passenger side, I'm going to make all the connections on the back of the headlight and just matching up the connectors to their corresponding parts. So once again, the harness that we ran off of the fuse box across the top of the radiator support gets plugged in here. Our 2-pin turn signal bulb that gets plugged into the 2-pin connector on the headlight. And then once again matching up our large brown connector. And there's the click. Finally the 4-pin connector. And once again, just making sure to tuck all of the wires into the void behind the headlight so that nothing gets interfered with. And sliding it into place. And I'm just going to use a 10mm socket and reinstall the factory hardware. Now I'm just going to reinstall my lower plastic piece, line up all my bolt holes, and once again using 10mm and my factory bolts, reinstall. Now I'm just going to throw in the final headlight bezel and install it with the factory hardware. I'm just going to use my 7mm socket on a ratchet and install these bolts here in the corner of the wheel well. And last but not least, we're going to install the final push clip into the trim bezel, and that will wrap up this install. And that's going to wrap up this review and install of the Morimoto XB Projector LED headlights with white daytime running lights for your 15 to 17 F-150. Thanks for watching, and for all things F-150, keep it right here at AmericanTrucks.com.